Pokemonth moves into the advanced generation with Jirachi the Wishmaker, the first movie made after the series committed the unspeakable act of once again changing the cast. By this point, the show had become dull and repetitive, so the creators seemed to think that the best way to freshen things up was to 1. Give Ash a costume change, and 2. Get rid of Misty and Brock and replace them with 2 new characters. May, the female trainer from the Ruby and Sapphire games, and her younger brother Max, because why even wait till you're 10 to start traveling the world anymore? And then for whatever reason they brought back Brock again. This of course pissed off all the Ash-Misty shippers, and the show continued to be dull and repetitive, but at least they tried. For their first movie together, Ash and his new batch of sidekicks arrive at a festival in honor of the Millennial Comet. A comet that comes around, well, once every millennium. As part of the festivities, they attend a performance by a magician called Butler, whose big trick involves a magical space rock thing containing Jirachi, a Pokemon that only emerges for the 7 days the comet is visible. When Jirachi does awaken, he immediately latches onto Max, and the two of them bond. None the wiser that Butler plans to use Jirachi for his own sinister purposes. Right from the start, you can tell this movie is very aware of what came before it. Not just because of the prologue that references every previous Pokemon movie, with a shot of Mewtwo looking freaking gangsta in a badass cloak, but there's also a very clear effort to break the typical Pokemon movie formula. Gone is the opening action sequence set to the current theme song, they just sorta roll the credits. And more noticeably, this is the first movie that doesn't put Ash in the spotlight, and instead focuses on Max and his friendship with Jirachi. That can be good or bad depending on your tolerance for Max and Jirachi, who somehow avoids reaching Celebi levels of excessive cuteness, but at least it's something different. And this also turns out to be another movie that makes good use of its entire cast. Ash may not be the focus, but he still steps up as the man of action when the time comes. And he even finds an opportunity to share some of his knowledge and wisdom, which shows that he has matured over time, in spite of his being perpetually 10 years old, that is.
A good friend left me, and I miss her every day. But I know we'll always be friends forever.
Oh, thanks for reminding us that Misty isn't here anymore. Now we're stuck with this other chick who has her own goals and motivation and does more than occasionally bitch at you and... Okay, get your hate mail ready. I actually think May is a stronger character than Misty. I'm not saying Misty was poorly defined. She had her own quirks and a somewhat developed backstory, but as far as the movies are concerned, May is much more diverse, or at least she's written a whole lot better. By that I mean, if you had never seen the show before and you watched one movie with Misty and one movie with May at random, odds are you'd come out of it with a much better understanding of May's character. In this movie alone, we see that she's proactive, being the first one to reach for her Pokeball, the sign of trouble. She and Max bicker, as siblings do, but she also has a maternal side. She's even the butt of the occasional joke.
Jirachi, get rid of the problem!
Okay.
She's gone!
Disappeared!
And all the Misty fanboys and girls rejoiced! The only characters I would say get sidelined here are Team Rocket, who I've learned to stop expecting things from anyway, and Brock, but that's not really anything new either. What is new is we finally have another villain with some freaking depth. Butler isn't the most memorable antagonist, but he's a huge step up from the previous few. Partially because he's not another freaking member of Team Rocket. The movie makes it clear that from a young age, Butler showed great potential, but he uses his talents to serve his own ego. At one point, for no adequately explained reason, Butler was a scientist working for Team Magma, who are essentially Team Rocket with a slightly different plan for world domination, but he was kicked out when he failed to resurrect the legendary Pokemon Groudon. Now his plan is to use Jirachi's mystical comet powers or whatever to try and awaken Groudon again, simply to prove that he can and rub it in Team Magma's face. Again, he's not the most complex villain we've ever seen, but he still has an interesting backstory and clear motivation. And he's the first villain we see who demonstrates the destructive power of pride. Basically, he's the Pokemon equivalent of Walter White. Dusclops, we have to cook Megastones!
Dusclops!
And on top of that, he's still redeemable, fulfilling the role of one-shot expositing sidekick as Butler's assistant/girlfriend Diane, who isn't really that strong of a character because her entire life seems to revolve around her mad scientist boyfriend, but seeing a couple on opposite sides of a conflict is once again something we haven't seen before. And she also serves to keep Butler grounded, because as Jirachi very clearly states, on the off chance that you didn't figure it out for yourself,
Butler can't be all bad. He loves Diane.
Considering the copious amounts of praise I'm currently showering this movie with, this has gotta be one of the better ones out there, right? Well, no. It does a lot of things differently from the others, which is refreshing. Especially if you were, say, power watching a whole bunch of Pokemon movies for the sole purpose of subjecting them to unwarranted levels of scrutiny and posting the results online. But it doesn't add up to a very memorable whole. The location isn't anything special, the stakes never feel particularly high, and oddly enough, the sound mix is really off. I don't know if this is an issue with the Japanese soundtrack or the English dub, but for whatever reason, the score is super quiet, and there even seem to be sound effects missing. I might have just gotten a bad copy, which is perfectly likely. These movies aren't shown a whole lot of love in their US distribution. The only reason I own it is because it comes as part of this lovely 4-pack that doesn't even list the movies in the right order. Thank you, Homebridge Entertainment. But it doesn't sell the climax at all. Even when everybody's getting eaten by this giant-ass Groudon that isn't actually Groudon, but it still looks like Groudon, I don't know, the climax doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And neither does the movie's whole wish motif. I mean, it's called Jirachi the Wishmaker, but Jirachi can't actually grant wishes. And throughout the entire movie, May's got this fun little subplot going with this wishing star trinket that doesn't amount to anything at the end.
It doesn't matter. We all have to make our own dreams come true anyway.
Then why is it called Jirachi the Wishmaker? And why does Jirachi need a friend to bring it out of its sleep when it's only going to leave that friend 7 days later? A lot of Pokemon movies have parallels with other films. The first one is Frankenstein, Forever is Princess Mononoke, this one is basically E.T. You've got a little boy who makes friends with an otherworldly creature, but has to learn to say goodbye at the end, knowing that they'll live on in each other's hearts forever and ever and yada yada yada. But here, the friendship is a prerequisite, meaning that every 1,000 years, Jirachi sets someone else up for heartbreak.
I'll never forget you. We'll be best friends. Forever and ever.
Tell that to my therapist, you non-wish-granting prick! And like I said, ultimately the film just isn't very memorable. It's not offensive or insulting, but it's not very entertaining either. It's just another Pokemon movie, and is a pretty underwhelming film debut for the advanced generation. Would we see this trend continue with Destiny Deoxys? We'll find out next time on Pokemonth! I asked who your favorite new starter was, let's see who was able to look away from their DS long enough to answer. It was close between Fennekin and Froakie, but in the end the Ninja Frog beat out the Fox Witch, with not a whole lot of people showing love for Chespin. Though I guess it's hard to compete with something with a final form this badass. Do I want it to learn Water Shuriken? Do you even have to ask? If you'd like a chance to see your comment up here, simply answer the following question. Which female sidekick do you prefer? Misty or May? Leave your answer in the comments below and you just might see it featured on the next episode of Pokemonth. In the meantime, please enjoy the vocal stylings of May... no last name given.